The explosion shook Maple Ridge like a thunderclap. Windows rattled, alarms screamed, and within seconds, the whole neighborhood rushed outside. Thick, black smoke poured out of Karen's perfect white chimney, twisting into the sky like angry ghosts. And there she was, standing in her driveway, hair half-singed, shrieking about faulty firewood. But I knew exactly what happened. Because for weeks, Karen had been sneaking into my yard at night, stealing logs from my woodpile, the same pile she once fined me for because it lowered community standards. Every time I replaced the missing wood, more vanished, so I stopped replacing it with regular logs. I got creative. Because in an HOA like ours, reason doesn't work on people like Karen. They only learn when things literally blow up in their face. Before I go further, tell me where you're watching from and what time it is. And make sure you subscribe to Neighbor Wars HQ for more insane HOA battles just like this one. Now, before the smoke and chaos, life in Maple Ridge Estates used to be peaceful, almost too peaceful. Perfect lawns, perfect fences, perfect forced smiles. I moved here 8 years ago after my wife passed, hoping the quiet would help. I was wrong. I worked from home as a freelance mechanical engineer. My backyard was my little sanctuary. Tools, a smoker, a woodpile I chopped every fall. Real, honest work. Unlike HOA politics, most neighbors were decent. The Millers brought pumpkin pie every Thanksgiving. Old Mr. Jenkins waved daily while watering his roses. Then she arrived. Karen Whitmore. Blonde mid-50s, always dressed like she had a court hearing, even if she was just walking her dog. Within a month, she somehow became HOA president. Nobody remembered voting, but suddenly she had the clipboard, the whistle, and the power. Karen loved 3 things: power, attention, and pretending she was protecting the neighborhood from moral decay. She wandered around like a budget FBI agent, snapping pictures of mailboxes, measuring grass with a ruler, sending warning letters like she was running her own private government. The first time she came to my door, smiled like a politician, and handed me a notice. "Mr. Thompson, your woodpile violates community aesthetic standards. It's visible from the street. It's behind my shed, Karen." She cocked her head to one side. "Well, from certain angles, it ruins neighborhood symmetry. 4 firewood. I didn't move it. I just stacked it neater and got on with my life. But Karen? She never stops. When she feels ignored, she escalates. A few days later, my woodpile looked smaller. I counted the logs I always keep track. 20 pieces gone. Weird, but I brushed it off. Until it happened again and again. Every other night, someone was stealing my firewood. I asked neighbors, no luck. And no kid is sneaking off with 40 pounds of oak at midnight. So I set a trap. I carved tiny marks into the logs, my craftsman's signature. Then installed a motion light near the shed. That night, around 11:30 p.m., it flicked on. A shadow slipped through my gate. Too fast to see, but the footprints left behind. High heels. Only one woman in Maple Ridge wears heels at midnight. And she lived 2 doors down. The next morning, I found another HOA letter from Karen, fining me again for my unsightly woodpile. The audacity. Later that day, I drove past her house. Through the front window, I saw them, my logs, with my carved marks, stacked neatly beside her fireplace. She was burning my wood, while threatening me for storing it. But confronting Karen only fuels her ego. So, I decided to educate her. That night, I dusted off my old sketch pad. I wasn't planning anything dangerous, just something to help Karen understand consequences. All I needed were a few hollow logs, leftover black powder from old fireworks, in a very creative mood. I slept better than I had in weeks. But before I set my plan in motion, I needed proof. Cold, undeniable video in her face proof. I bought 2 night vision cameras, one over the shed, one hidden in the gutter facing the gate. Night 1, nothing. Night 2, nothing. Night 3, 12:14 a.m. Ping. There she was, Karen beige coat, scarf, and those ridiculous heeled boots, walking straight into my yard like she owned it. She whispered, "He won't miss it. It's for the community anyway. It's for the community, right?" I watched her load my logs into her SUV like she was doing charity work. Okay, normal person would have gone to the HOA board or the cops. But Karen isn't normal. She lives in the fine print. She'd twist everything. Maybe even fine me for having cameras. So I waited. At the next HOA meeting, I sat front row. Karen walked in late holding a mug that said "Number 1 Boss Lady." She tapped the table. "Let's discuss the ongoing issue of Mr. Thompson's unsafe wood storage." The room groaned. She proudly announced a $250 fine and ordered me to remove the offending materials within 72 hours. I raised my hand. "Karen, you documented this recently, right?" "Within the last 48 hours, she smirked. "Of course, interesting," I said. "It's because within those same 48 hours, half my wood was stolen." The room went silent. Funny enough, my cameras caught the thief. Karen froze. "Can't film me, that's illegal." "The cameras are on my property," I said. "Perfectly legal." "Want to." That's when the sheriff pulled up. "Officer Ramirez." Karen ran to him. "Arrest him. He booby-trapped Firewood." I handed Ramirez my phone. He watched the footage. Looked at her. "Ma'am, this is trespassing and theft." Clear as day, her soul left her body. No charges were filed yet, but the warning was official. She turned to the HOA in desperation. "You're all turning against me," Mrs. Beasley muttered to another member. "Not anymore." "She doesn't." Karen heard it, and that was when everything really started falling apart. That was the final straw. Karen stomped to her SUV, slammed the door, and peeled off down the street, tires screaming. The crowd slowly dispersed. Officer Ramirez turned to me quietly. "You handled that better than most. Just don't build any more science experiments." I laughed. "No promises." That night, I sat by my fire pit, the same pit that started it all. Tossed on a real log this time, watched it crackle, smelled the oak smoke, and finally, peace. No HOA memos, no measuring tape patrols, no Karen marching like a self-appointed sheriff. I lifted my beer to poetic justice, but deep down, I knew the peace wouldn't last. Karen wasn't the kind to let humiliation fade quietly. 3 mornings later, an envelope taped to my door, stamped with the HOA seal. Inside, a formal notice for a special HOA hearing. "Mr. Thompson, you are summoned for violations, unauthorized security installations, and possible acts of endangerment." I laughed. The woman gets caught stealing and still wants a showdown. Fine. I was ready. That evening, I gathered everything. Camera footage, fire inspector's report, screenshots from neighbors confirming the explosion. My folder was thicker than a college thesis. Thursday night community clubhouse. The beige room where Karen humiliated me weeks ago. Perfect for reversal of fortune. The parking lot was full. Even people who usually skipped meetings showed up, whispering like they were waiting for a courtroom showdown. Karen sat at the head of the long table, chin high, flanked by loyalists. Mrs. Beasley, 2 newer board members. In a crowd buzzing with tension, she started, "Mr. Thompson, you may defend yourself if you can." "Thank you, Karen. Appreciate the dramatic build-up." I placed my folder on the table, flipped it open. Slowly, deliberately, "You claim I endangered the community, according to the fire inspector's report. Explosion happened inside your fireplace using materials stolen from my property. Isn't that right?" Karen froze, tapped my phone. The screen displayed her under moonlight, loading my logs into her SUV. Gasps filled the room. "This video was legally recorded on my property. It shows you trespassing and stealing." She shouted, "It's fake!" I said calmly. "Officer Ramirez reviewed it himself, and you received an official warning." Her voice faltered. Neighbors whispered, chuckled. Even Mrs. Beasley tried to hide a grin. "This is all part of your vendetta," Karen screamed. I leaned in, low voice. "Nobody hates you for enforcing rules. They hate you for making them up." A few people clapped. Someone whistled. Her backup crumbled. The vice president, Wilson, a calm, retired attorney, stood, according to HOA bylaws. "The board can call an emergency vote if a sitting president acts against the community interest. Shall we?" Karen froze. Hands started going up, hesitant, then confident. Mrs. Beasley raised hers. Soon, almost everyone voted to remove Karen as HOA president. She was speechless. "You're firing me?" "Not firing," Wilson said gently. Relieved of duty, she stormed out. No followers this time. The room erupted into applause. Long live common sense. Karen free zone. Afterwards, neighbors thanked me. The Millers brought cookies. Mr. Jenkins stopped by. For the first time, Maple Ridge felt like a neighborhood again, not a dictatorship. Karen moved towns over to another HOA. God help them. Weeks later, she tried a comeback. Signs in her yard. Fraudulent HOA vote. Thompson's firewood caused chemical injury. I leaned on the fence, hedge trimmer in hand, and called, "Morning, Karen." Opening an art gallery. She didn't look up. "You think this is funny, don't you? You humiliated me, but people will know the truth." I smiled. "The truth's been pretty loud lately. The new owners said I could pick them up." I studied her face. There was no fire in her eyes this time, just exhaustion. She looked smaller somehow, like the years had finally caught up to her. "All right," I said. "Shed's around back, but I'll come with you. Wouldn't want you taking the wrong firewood again." That earned me the faintest smirk. As we walked, she glanced around the yard. "You've made the place nicer." "Thanks," I said. "It's easier when no one's threatening to find you for existing." She sighed. "I wasn't trying to be cruel, Tom. I just wanted things to be orderly, controlled." "Yeah," I said softly. "That's the problem. People aren't meant to live under control, not like that." "A neighborhood isn't a military base." She didn't answer. Just opened the shed, took out a dusty box, and stared at it for a while. "You made me the joke of this town," she said quietly. "Do you have any idea how humiliating that was?" I looked her straight in the eye. "Karen, you did that to yourself." I just held up the mirror. For a moment, she looked like she wanted to argue. Then her shoulders dropped, and she nodded slowly. "Maybe you're right." When she turned to leave, she paused at the gate. "You know, they call me HOA Karen online now. Someone even made a meme." "Internet's undefeated," I said with a small grin. She didn't smile back. "Take care, Tom." And just like that, she walked away. No threats, no yelling, no fanfare. For the first time, Karen left quietly. I stood there for a long while, staring at the empty street. The wind rustled through the trees, carrying the faint scent of pine and ash. I couldn't help but feel something. Not pity exactly, more like closure. Because the truth was, Karen wasn't just a villain. She was a warning of what happens when control becomes obsession, when pride blinds you to decency. That night, the neighborhood gathered again around the fire pit. The flames flickered against the circle of smiling faces. Faces that had once avoided eye contact for fear of being fined for improper lighting. Wilson raised his glass to peace, and to the man who reminded us that standing up to bullies never goes out of style. Everyone cheered. Someone shouted to Tom in the great Firewood incident. I laughed, lifting my bottle. "To Karen," I said, smirking. "May her next neighborhood have better insurance." The whole circle burst out laughing. As the fire crackled and the night deepened, I leaned back and watched sparks drift into the sky. They looked like tiny stars breaking free. Wild, bright, untamed. And I realized something revenge had never really been the point. It wasn't about payback. It was about balance. About reminding people that respect once taken for granted will eventually demand to be restored. Sometimes through words, sometimes through fire. When I finally headed inside, I glanced one last time at the glowing embers. They pulsed gently in the darkness like a heartbeat. Peaceful, alive, and for the first time since I'd moved to Maple Ridge, I felt truly home. In life, there's a fine line between order and control. And once you cross it, even good intentions can turn toxic. Karen thought she was protecting the community, but she was really suffocating it. Her downfall wasn't caused by firewood or fireworks. It was caused by arrogance, by the belief that she was untouchable. And maybe that's why stories like this resonate, because we've all met a Karen at some point. Someone who uses power to belittle others, who mistakes control for leadership. But when truth and patience collide with that kind of ego, justice has a way of showing up. Sometimes loud, sometimes messy, but always poetic. So here's the lesson. Respect goes both ways. Treat people fairly. Mind your own yard. And don't steal someone else's wood, literal or metaphorical. What would you have done in my place? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed the ride, don't forget to subscribe for more wild true life HOA dramas. 'Cause in this neighborhood, karma always collects.